means truth. So tell me about your spiritual journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tattva Tuesday. This is Lindsay Warwick, the conduit on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. So excited this week to have Nicholas Causby. We were just laughing about the pronunciation words of his name. I actually don't know that much about you, which is kind of new and exciting for me for my podcast, because usually I have some interaction or experience with people that come on here. But you were actually, your name was dropped to me by Hans Carver, and he was my last guest on, or not today's guest, but last week's guest. So I'm excited to hear your story and get to know you. I know you're also a fellow podcaster, so that's pretty dope that we both have that in common. So I generally start Tattva Tuesday with, tell us about your spiritual journey.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. And shout out to Hans. I love you. My spiritual journey, I guess in essence, I have always seen the world differently, even as a young child. It always seemed like something wasn't quite right. So I already always seen things differently. And then when my son was born, I guess I used to call myself a spiritual agnostic. I was raised Christian, Baptist, hot hell and
Oh, yeah.
just for a long time I actually had a real hard feelings towards all of that, because to indoctrinate a young mind with that type of things is like spiritually manipulative. And so I was really angry at Christianity and all that stuff for a long time. And I called myself a spiritual agnostic, meaning I didn't know whether there was a supreme being or this and that and the third, but it really just mean that I didn't know. And now I would call myself a Gnostic or mystic, if there was a label for anything. Is um my my son was born, and that really made me want to narrow down how all this worked so that I could pass that on and it not be the same type of all this disharmonization type teachings being combated, which was okay for me because I learned through all that. But as part of the change also is to bring up the next generation with a whole new way of knowing or whatever. And so starting to seek what life was like really all about, then obviously like the universe started responding. And yeah, I remember telling my grandma at like 16, I was like, you don't need a church to go and have a relationship with God. I said, like, that voice in your head that's telling you this and that and the third. I was like, that's God, or what you would call God. You already have that personal relationship. And even at that point in time, I would have called myself like more agnostic. And so then I started seeing like, numbers all the time and this and that and the third. And I was married and had a business and this whole American dream. And I was in a living nightmare. I was living in hell. And then, I realized that, hell was something that existed here, and it's a state of mind and a way that you live. And so I had to like make hard choices and and closed my business and quit speaking to my mother, and um, I got divorced, and once I kind of made these things that were um, unhealthy relationships or just disharmonious vibrations for one reason or another, because you can love someone, but you don't owe anyone your time and your attention. Like I can love anybody from a distance, but I don't owe you like my time and my personal space.
Mm-hmm.
That's self-love, which took a long me time to figure out what that actually meant.
Yeah.
And so after I made these hard choices and decisions, it was like a rocket into a whole new everything. Like I don't even look nothing like the person that I'm talking about that made these decisions, 5 years ago. That version has died many times over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all, I'd really come to the point to where I didn't um, know who I was. Like I remember that I was closer to who I really was, like maybe when I was 18 or 17, 18, closer when I was graduating high school, was closer to who I was as I was getting to my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't even really like the person that I had become. I didn't like the way I felt and those types of things. And so I really wanted to try to find that essence of who I was, um, which coincided with, finding truth with how all this works. It's a hand-in-hand relationship. And it just perpetuated this uh beautiful journey where like I had like experiences, plant medicine and other things that just kind of really just broke all kinds of barriers and ideas and showed me just different things altogether. Some things are just almost unexplainable, some of the experiences, but like one in particular, like right after I had made these decisions, I had this random experience that come about that like forever changed me, and I was never the same again. It was just like all this information was just downloaded to me, or like I connected to something. And it was a crazy experience at that point in time. But now looking back, like 5 years later, like it's something that it was forever changing, and then that's when I come up with the idea of doing a podcast called Higher Frequencies. Um, and that whole journey in itself has been a learning experience because I would never set a time or anything to do a podcast. I would just do them when I felt like it, and then whatever it was called would just kind of, it would just all line up when time was for this, that, and the third, and then I would just sit down and I would let things come, and I would learn as I was talking about, just these different things about life. And so I really enjoyed doing them because it was learning, and like I knew bits and pieces of this and that and the third, but it was just sometimes when I talk to people or when I do a podcast, just all this stuff just comes together and comes through in this magical way. um and so through doing the podcast and then all the things that come through, and practicing, it's funny because things will come through and you hear it and you understand it, but to actually practice what you preach, or even know how to incorporate these types of things in your day-to-day life, is a whole nother level in itself. And so I've changed so much drastically, just because of that connection with, spirit just coming through and teaching and showing. And then people, it's even bigger than that, because there's just people in here and places that where the universe has taken me and showed me, and meeting it's really a gathering of the tribe, because there's a grand change that's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
um, we've all had certain experiences for these different types of transitions, and we've come to to do it again in a different way. And so everyone is spread out all across the globe, but we're all like really connected beyond this experience in ways that we can imagine. So we're meeting a lot of people. It's like, you seem familiar, or I know you, and it seems to be happening like more and more. This impetus, and all of it. It's all pointing to the same thing, and all the prophecies of like the Mayan calendar, the end of the world, which is just the end of a paradigm and an old way. And like, the second coming of Christ, all of these things are prophecies of the same thing that we are actually living and doing like right now, like doing this and the different things that we try and do to reach out and gather and to anchor that energy, because all things have to be brought down through us. We're just like a bridge or anchor point, like even the source of all things like still anchors down and in through us. Everything, what we pay with our attention is what gives those things energy. And so we're just like bursting into this whole new energy. And I say bursting too, and I used to say we was waiting on this like shift, but there's something that just keeps coming to me, that we're already in something that's new, but we don't even know how to play with it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So uh it's been a wild ride, and it continues to be like just a beautiful ride and experience, just to meet and fellowship with others about how they've come to their same spots in life, um, and their take on, because we all come from the one single source. So we're all part of this pattern, and the only thing that is unique to all of us is that perspective and that observation point. Like nothing but the source itself can occupy the space and time that you're occupying and viewing from. So your perception is totally unique to you, and everything else is not. It's all
Yeah.
connected. It's all part of the pattern. Like what is unique is that perspective. And somehow we've went through this sleepy consciousness time, because I think we go through these cycles of being awake and asleep consciously, just like we do in our daily life. And we just went through this sleepy conscious stage where we're like waking up now. And I lost my flow. We're transitioning into this time to where
I feel like the veil is thinning. Like we're just literally moving into a completely new way of being and existing. Just like you said, moving from sleepy consciousness to we're going through a mass awakening, like on a
Yes.
planetary level. And as you were talking, I just want to comment that if you're just listening to audio, Nicholas is sitting in this awesome room with this beautiful art behind him, and the sunlight is just like morphing on your face, like just changing your face like a
I was
shape.
trying not to cry a couple times there. It was the energy. I don't care what energy it is, everybody's experienced it, where there's emotion of like anger or love. It's like this vessel can only hold so much energy, and when it overflows it comes out in tears. That's why you can laugh so hard that you cry. It's just that energy just has to come out. And
Yeah,
sometimes I talk about the things, and then when I talk about the things, it almost makes me like want to cry. It's sometimes
yeah.
hard to keep my composure.
Okay, this is Tattva Tuesday. This is Truth Tuesday. So if it means tears on a Tuesday, then that's totally fine. I wanted to just reference some of your story that you mentioned you know, you talked about you were living this other life, literally looking like a different version of you. And you said the American dream, but it was actually a nightmare. And I have this, my friend, I'm sure you know him, Wade. Do you know Wade?
Yes, yes, I know
Wade,
Wade.
wide open Wade always says, I was living the American nightmare. I was in the American nightmare. And that's so true. And, you know, since he exited that, you know, he's gone on this quest of like opening up his mind and experiencing life in a different way. And it sounds like you did the same thing. But you had to make those tough decisions to get to the next level of your ascension. It almost sounds like that was sort of your, maybe one of your, what we call in the spiritual world, the dark night of the soul, where you travel through this dark time or this time of suffering, and then you come out on the other side and you've ascended into a new way of being. And I love doing this podcast as well. It was also birthed after a really dark night of the soul for me, because you said that after that time, that transitional period, you got the idea or the download to do your higher frequencies podcast, which I love that. I was in an abusive relationship where, and I haven't ever said this on my podcast, but I'll share it now, that I was actually strangled. And I got the download from God, right, within me, to create a podcast where I would have my voice heard and heal my throat chakra from all of that. And right before I jumped into this podcast, like I couldn't sleep for days because I was so afraid of what people would think about me, or what would I even say, or what would I even talk about. But in doing the podcast, it's just been such an amazing experience where I don't plan these things. I didn't give you any questions to prepare, you know. It's like God is going to show up for us, like, and speak through me and speak through you. And then I'm always learning from people that are on the podcast. And that's why, you know, I choose to do this to, you know, learn, basically, to just continue to learn and grow, and hopefully, you know, influence people on their spiritual path as well. So I love those parallels about how we started our podcast journey.
Right. It's funny, because it come to me a long time ago that everybody's path is the same. It's even the same someone that's an addict. It is this so to me, like the dark night of soul is like whenever you start to see the world differently, and then you feel like nobody else can see what you see. But there's a rock bottom that everybody that's ever been like addicted to a substance, well, that rock bottom is universal in different ways. You know, even whenever I had my company, at one point I was struggling. I was like working 70 hours and just nothing was working the way it's supposed to. It was just like one hiccup after another, and like I was losing things just like somebody that was addicted to a drug or something. And I remember as I was like, I wish that I was a crackhead so that I could just like quit smoking crack and all my problems would go away. Like that seemed like that would be such an easy fix. But it's so funny because the journey is the same, of like hitting this rock bottom where you're just so frustrated with everything, and you just kind of hit this miserable point, and it could be anything. You know, it could be substance, it could be relationships. Like mine was just having these people around me that really wanted my energy, and they all were just like sucking the energy from me, and I was just
Yeah, like
unaware of like
energy.
all those things. Yeah, and so it was not fun to go through, but it was all like learning things that also helps others. Was the whole hope of doing a podcast, was like, if I don't care if I do the podcast for the rest of my life, if I just help one person like through their struggle, then it's completely worth it, you know.
Yes, I always say that, because look at me. I'm using this, I'm holding this microphone. I'm sitting on my couch. My dog is right here. And when I got the download to do the podcast, I was like, I am not technical. I don't know how to do that. And my guides were like, it's fine, you know, and people helped me along the way. And I still do this podcast in one raw take. But I love that you said that if I could just help one person, I'm good. Because I say that all the time. Like, I don't make money off of this. I certainly am not super technical or technically advanced. But if I can just help one person, then I've done my job. Like
Right.
lived out my life's purpose. And so I totally resonate with that I was like, yes, as soon as you said it, like I'm right there with you. So, and I love that you brought up the rock bottom because, you know, I'm currently like 68 days alcohol free, and I've had my own battle with drinking and the addictive personality and everything like that. And recently, 68 days ago, I did hit the darkest emotional bottom, you know, that I've ever hit before. So that's so funny or not. Like coincidentally, you mentioned as an addict hits a
It's
bottom.
just the path, like, you
It
know, it's
is.
just the way it works. And honestly, when it comes down to it, like the whole story of Jesus, like regardless of anything, you can look at it as a parable, and that lines up with that parable of you not being of this world, being born into this world, to be rejected by it. That's that rock bottom. That's like where you, that is to be rejected by the world, just like the story of Jesus, and to be
Yes,
crucified and to rise again. Well, that is to,
rebirth.
when you know that rock bottom and that discovery is where you start to break these barriers between a me and a us. And so to the death of you is whenever you start to find out that you're not your name and your body, like this is just an avatar, and that that's inside of you, that you are that real essence, that you are is an eternal being. Well, that's the whole parable. That is the death and the resurrection right there. That is, so that's why all those things, it's the path is just the path. It's the
Yeah,
thin, the narrow way, you know. It's just, and everybody's talked about it and pointed to it, and and it's so funny. Like, I love to talk about all these things, but I tell everybody is like, you know, we can talk about it all the time and in many different ways, but it's like life. It's just these things that it's something you have to experience, you know,
absolutely.
and you really can't explain it because the infinite is that it is infinite. So we can explain it until we're black and blue in the face. It's just like experiencing spirit and touching that and having that um knowing, not a belief. You know, once a person has a spiritual experience, then they can no longer be religious, because religion is stories that people have shared of their spiritual experiences. And once you
Mhm.
actually have your own spiritual experience, then you realize that that was just a person sharing their experience for you, you know, to do the same thing. And so we are the return of Christ, you know, because Jesus was just a man that, because Christ is like Christos. It means to be anointed. Well,
Mhm.
anointed by what? Anointed by the Spirit. So Jesus was a man that could touch spirit, and he could
Mhm.
share it, and he could share it with the Pharisees, which is the Jewish, or anybody. He'd have a way to share even their knowledge and to intertwine it with that of spirit. So he was just anointed by spirit, and that's how he got the name of Christ. And you know, he spoke of like, you will be greater gods than I, is because the return of this spirit of being just touch in spirit. We all have that connection. It all lives inside of us. We can't be absent of it. You know, we could just be immersed in our characters to where we don't realize that we are connected to that. And so the return of Christ is that thing that's coming up inside of us, is that knowing that um the kingdom is right here where we're at, you know, and that we're bringing spirit back to this experience, and that is to bring the heaven to earth, you know. And that's all the prophecies, like the all the natives in the Bible all points to the same thing. And we are right now living and being thing. The most recent thing that come to me, and it's just so beautiful, is everybody talks about the ancients and the ancestors and how they prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. Well, we were the ancestors
Yeah.
praying, and we are actually the ancestors return, and we are the answer to our own prayers right now.
Yeah, for sure. Because, like, what is time even? Like, timelines are all simultaneously happening and this and that. And, like, at some point, I'm you and you're me. And, like, we've been every ethnicity and all the things. But it is, yeah, we're definitely going through a mass shift in consciousness. And I love that you put the parallel, or you just shined a huge light on that we all go through the Christ story at some point. And like that gave me chills just thinking about it, because that's what's been demonstrated on this podcast. We talk about, okay, we were going this way in life and then we hit our bottom, get crucified in a way, and
To
then
be rejected by the world. Yeah.
yes, and then we rise and have our own resurrection and become that Christic energy, the Christ consciousness energy, which has been so heavy around me, or light around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This week, yeah, I did like a private Reiki attunement here, and like Joan of Arc was in my living room, and I was very connected to Archangel Michael, and so I love the Christ consciousness energy. But what a beautiful analogy that we are all that we are all that, and that is what we
Yeah.
all go through. We do have that free will to choose, like, am I going to continue to suffer, and use that as a springboard for rebirth, or am I going to just rebirth into a new aspect of myself? And what's also in my head is, what kind of business did you have before?
I'm a master carpenter.
Okay.
I
You don't
still
say.
yeah, I still do that, and I make I've been venturing into making lights, like projection lights that project like sacred geometry shapes on the walls and stuff. Has kind of been my play, and I'm trying to shift into, I mean, ultimately my real goal and what I feel like I'm here for, and like the long term, the reason why I am a master carpenter and the reason why I chose to have all these experiences, because we have chosen this experience on another level. Living in the now, I even get to the points where I don't even think I'm not manifesting, as I'm surrendering to the path that I've already chose, because I've already wrote down what I wanted to do on the level of spirit, and this is the level of experience that which I have chosen. So I've already exercised my free will. Like, this isn't really the place where I come to exercise it. And so what pulls me is obviously part of the bigger picture, is I want to create sustainable communities across the world. But I know that there's a certain group of individuals that's ready to take a step, and all these things will roll out. I just know that I'm supposed to be part of the creation of these new communities that will be all across everywhere. At one point, cities of light, as I've heard the name, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like what it is, because it's not a going back in time. I'm talking about like 3D print and hempcrete houses, and growing your own food, and solar, and like having a river that gives you power, and all these different types of things where we utilize the tools that we've been given at this point in time that we live, and we just metamorph it into that thing that which we come to do, which is actually just to be the change that we want to see in the world, because that's the only way you can change anything is by changing yourself. And so
Mhm.
we just have to seek to do that, and see to how do we change this and that and the third, and try not to get too extracted by the how grand the challenge is, or how this and that will work out, because I know from personal experiences, like when you sit in this spot of surrender where you're at ease, what is to come is when the most mind-blowing things will ever happen in your life. And
Yes.
that is that point of surrender. So my new trick that I've been trying to reprogram myself is to try to be playful, childlike in nature, and try to be excited about how the universe is about to do its next thing, to be excited about how I don't know what's going to happen next. And it's going to blow my mind because I'm just letting it happen. Like,
I love that. I was just talking about that today. I had coffee with some friends, and the more that I don't exert my plan or my energy on something and I sit back, like the most miraculous things do happen. And I always say, like, God is doing for me what I can't do for myself. But let's backtrack to what you said about, okay, like in the ethers, before I chose this vessel, this body, this time,
Mhm.
I had a contract, like a soul contract, and it's already,
Yeah, a story, a book. You
yeah,
wrote the story, or a movie. You
yeah,
you were the author. You wrote it. It's yours.
yeah. So if I stop using my ego mind and I'm like, okay, if I stop trying so hard and I just allow, like the path just lights up in front of me. The more
Mhm.
that I try, the more I feel like I'm in suffering. And the more that I just sit back, I'm not. And then it is like, yeah, God is doing for me. God is within me as well. So it's already laid out. It's like literally like the path of least resistance. Like the more resistance I put on something, the more that I'm
I
stuck.
call it the flow. It's
Yeah.
the flow. It's like that's the most. I don't really know else how to explain it. It's just a flow where you're not pushing or pulling anywhere. And it's funny how all this works is I think as soon as something, I mean, thoughts are really not even yours. They're a flow, and your frequency brings those thought paths to you, and then we attach to them, and then we claim them as our own. Because thought is just another energy flow, and it's just all energy. Um, so oh, I got sidetracked on that. Oh me. Oh yeah. So as soon as it comes to us that we need or want or feel called to do something, that's already the initiation of it coming to you. And we add this energy of like how we make it happen or the doubt of how it's going to happen. That's actually bringing that to you. So like even if you're a person that wants to manifest, as far as I know, how it works is like as soon as you think that you want or need this and that and the third, you just be like, oh yeah, that's right, and then leave it there. That's it. Like it's
Uh-huh.
already right, pulling straight to you without you. And anything that you add energy to it, then you're gonna either push you closer to it or further away. And that's all magic was to me. Magic is how life actually works. It's not this woo woo. That's life.
Yeah. I listen, I agree with you 1,000%, like 1,000%. And I'm also wondering, like, if you've ever had your human design read, because I'm a generator, which basically means that I don't really have to do much. Things just happen. But I think maybe we're all just that way. If we, I mean, effort is good, right? Like effort, and you also have to take action to do certain things. Like, you can't just literally sit here and then you have to put some effort in. But for me, like I said, when I sit back and allow and don't put my ego into it or like exert so much, like the most miraculous things happen. Like I don't even have to do things. Like it just lays itself out in front of me.
Right. I guess the way I've seen it, kind of, if I was trying to analyze it, like you were talking, I guess like being in that flow is like you already have, things that that you need to take care of, whether it's something that's the service in your normal day-to-day needs, or like you're gonna help somebody do this and that there, because this is just all an energy exchange, and work and money is just another type of form of energy exchange that we interact with one another, which will all eventually change. I don't know when or how, but I know all those things shed away my community. There won't really be no need for money. We might make and export things because like the rest of the world still exists, and it'll take time for the transition of those things to change. So there'll still be a thing with like the system, but like in the community, there really won't be the need for that thing except for the outside stuff. And the whole thing
Mhm.
about being sovereign and having your own things is like taking care of all of those basic needs just to live life, you know. In the 80s we had the technology where the whole world could basically live without working and at a higher standard of living in the 80s. You know, here we are in like 2023, so we are way beyond the point to where we can use resources and our knowledge and technology that really just brings up the standard of living for everybody. And we are really just cells of the earth, and we are interacting with our other cells, which is you and I. You're a cell in my body and I'm a cell in your body, and cancer comes from that friction of not interacting with our cells correctly. But the earth is living and conscious, and it's going in through an awakening state also. It's becoming aware of its cells, which is us. And in response, us as the cells of earth are coming aware of earth. That's why we have this, we went through this phase of what we say we were hurting the earth, but I think it's very egotistical to think that we could destroy the earth or this and the third. Like it
Yeah,
has
like
its
we're
own
not that
defense.
powerful. Like
Yeah.
like we are all part of this. Like if
Yeah.
frequency is all that there is, then we are part of it, like a tapestry. Like right now, like I'm part of this space at like a yeah, like because all the cells are moving together and interacting. And I just had a download when you were talking about we have the technology to blah blah blah, and I was like, oh my god, like you know how there's all these documentaries and theories about Atlantis and that civilization and the technology and the Egyptians, and it's like we are that. We
Yeah.
are that now.
Yeah.
We are
Exactly.
that. Here we are again doing that
And
again.
think about how easy it would be to eradicate every trace of us right now. One cataclysmic event, all the buildings are gone, all the books, all the video, there's nothing. There's no trace of us. And that's happened. That's happened lots of times. That's the real story. We've probably been on this planet millions of years, and we went through so many times where we've destroyed the earth, retaliated but in its nervous system and its antibiotic, and you know we've went through the devastations, or whether it was even just the solar system itself. and
Mhm.
and that's what all those stories of Atlantis was. You know, it's like one way or another we've like done things, but you know that's why the now is so magical, is because we have all this experience inside of us of those things, you know. So the earth is aware of all its cycles, it has done these things, and so we have, it's just a whole new connection, you know. It's That's why we're more aware of how we're interacting with earth. And
Mhm.
it's got to do with the frequencies. It's all about harmony and
Mhm.
resonance. And you know, we already know when we interact with people, place, things, even thoughts that you carry in your mind carries a resonance or a disharmonious frequency. And that's what it's all about, is trying to, that day-to-day action of what you try to do and what we try to share with one another is just being in resonance and harmony with one another and the planet as much as we can. And
Mhm.
us gathering and doing these things in our life is bringing us together on a larger scale, because we are, as a cell of earth, we are its defense mechanism. You know, there are other defense mechanisms that are more extreme, but we are, you know, with the white blood cells, and you come into to heal the things that we done in our knowingness. Because I try not to label anything good or bad in my own personal perspective, because I
That's a
try not
very
to judge
shamanic,
myself, you know. So
shamanic
I
practice.
this is all a discernment. Everything around me is my reflection. It's not for me to say it's good or bad. I am like that or I am not like that. And that's it. There's not
Yeah.
good, bad, anything. And that's really the hardest part about oneness and all this growing and learning, is people that's been through trauma And this is a lot of responsibility to say that I chose to experience anything. And some people will never, they didn't come, this incarnation is not here for them to do that. That
Mhm.
some of us are here to do that very thing. And then people that's had hard trauma in their life, it is really such a hard pill to swallow, to think that you chose or are responsible for trauma or events in your life. But it's once you have this whole new perspective and this inner standing about how you are divine and connected to the divine, and it lives inside of you, then you can, from the other side, you can see that I chose to be this now, and that made me this now. But whenever you're still a victim of how life is, what the cards that you've been dealt, it's just so hard to take that.
Ooh, I'm like, just like, I feel like my head is gonna explode. Like my crown chakra is like so open talking to you, because I just am right there with what you're saying. That I literally was talking about this today too, that like I went through like that emotional rock bottom this year. And I was saying to my friends, like, I almost feel guilty for how good I feel for the choices that I made, which were hard choices and that involved suffering. But once you can take responsibility, like for your path, like you're saying, like if you play the victim card, then you're stuck in those like karmic loops. And some of us are having these human experiences where they're not able to transmute and like ascend, and so they stay stuck in that victim lower frequency mentality. And I guess if you've been around the block enough times, like me or you, like, and you've had these suffering experiences, you decide to look at them as lessons or blessings, and you choose like, okay, I'm going to actually grow from this, and I'm not going to be stuck in shame, guilt, or remorse. I'm going to continue to grow. But yeah, some of us unfortunately, don't choose that in this incarnation. Like you said, that is their soul contract this time around,
They
is to
teach us from that. Everybody, this is all a learning experience. So if we all come from the divine, it's to really come and play the character as the bad guy is such more of a sacrifice than what
oh
you would
yeah.
think, because this is just a movie, it's a play.
Yeah, which reminds me, have you ever listened to The Little Soul and the Sun? I think I might
Mm-mm.
be butchering it, but it's on YouTube. You should check it out after this. But
Okay.
essentially, it's two souls in the ethers that are like, I love you so much. I love you so much. Okay, I'm going to go down to earth and I'm going to be the villain in your story, but it's going to propel you into levels of ascension that you never thought were possible. And every time I watch this, when I go through something where someone else hurts me, I watch this and I just sob, because yeah, like what a burden, I guess, to be that soul to come here to cause you your trauma so you ascend. You know what I
It's
mean?
it's a whole nother perspective of things. That's why I think the biggest change in all of this, like, we know that there's a manipulative energy here on earth that's been here for a long time, that's manipulated us because they are aware of consciousness, you know but that is all part of the grand scheme. Them actually working against us is all part of the whole thing, and they are us. And so we have to eliminate that us and them. That's the whole thing about it, is eliminating that. I listen to Sat Song, a music artist, and he says we drop bombs to learn to not drop bombs. And that's pretty pretty simplistic way of kind of saying it.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that artist as well. Yeah, what an experience it is to be human. And I also like resonate with, when you're talking about having sustainable community, I just got like so many like visions of that. And you just remind me very much of one of my best friends who is completing permaculture classes and wants to build sustainable communities, and responds with I understand, like instead of I understand, like I understand. And like I don't know, just having this conversation with you right now, like I said, my crown chakra is like like opening up so much. And I'm like, I need to connect her like to you, because y'all have like a lot of the same ideas. Um, but yeah, this has been a really expansive conversation. I really didn't know what to expect, because I don't know you that well, but I do know you.
Right, right, right. That seems to be a very common thread recently, for sure. And so I say that seeking to find out that I'm still learning and trying to become that I am. And, someone can't really know you unless they know themselves. They have to know that I am to know that I am. Like to know me isn't to know this perception of me, to know me. And I've only experienced me a couple times, I'm still trying to be that I am in my day-to-day life, and I've only experienced it a couple times. But for an individual to find that I am inside of them, it's to act in essence to find me, and that's who I am, and that's who I'm trying to be, is that same thing.
Yeah, and I just, as I'm talking to you, I'm just getting like rapid downloads and just images that, of course, like we can relate to people wherever they're at because they are us. Like we've been through that, or they've been through what we've gone through. And whoa, I'm just like, wow, like we are all one, and we are all mirrors of each other. Whether that mirror that day or in that present moment is reflecting a love aspect or a shadow aspect, and we're not going to say good or bad, which is a very shamanic way of looking at things. Like it's frequency, it's light or it's dark. It's not, oh, that's bad or oh, that's so good. It's like I'm either on that wavelength or I'm not on that wavelength. And what wavelength do I choose? I have the free will to choose what wavelength I'd like to be on. But that's why I feel like when you love someone, right? You love someone, I think you're really loving that aspect of you that you see in them. Or if you like despise somebody or, are triggered by that person, it's them reflecting back a shadow aspect of them to you, another
That's
teachable
absolutely right.
moment.
Yes. I always say that it's really none of our business what people think about us, you know what
I
I'm saying?
say
Because
that
that's
too.
that's your thoughts, that's personal to you. This is why it's called your thoughts. So it's really none of our business what people think about us. And when it comes down to it, whatever somebody thinks about us really doesn't even have anything to do with us.
Literally nothing. It's in their own like fishbowl of existence. It's coming from their level of perception and their life experiences that are gonna like paint paint the picture of whatever's going on, or however they view you is really, it is them. It's them. It's their thoughts and everything. So yeah, I also like subscribe to it's none of my business what you think about me. Now, do I, yeah, like, do I follow it perfectly? No, I mean, I'm human and sometimes I dip into my ego and I, worry about what people think or what they say. But then if
Well,
I,
there's no end game. There's
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 what?
no there's no end game here. There's no destination. This is a forever infinite journey. There's nothing to obtain because you already are. We're only shedding away those things that we are not in this reflection of discernments of who we are. There's nothing to become or nowhere to go. It's just a continuous journey of expanding. Consciousness is all things. It is what we're living in, immersed in. We call it God, we call it energy. These are all many terms to describe the one thing, again, the source of all
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
And it's a continuous thing. I don't like the word enlightenment because it seems like there's a destination you're going to get and there's an ending. But only thing I did was awaken to a new me and a new perception, and it just was a whole new beginning. And there's just going to be these continuous new beginnings through our new discovery of consciousness, because this is all just the exploration of consciousness, and we're exploring our own consciousness with our interactions with each other, or plant medicines, or whatever that people want to try and explore consciousness with inside themselves or with outside themselves,
Yeah.
the
And when
grand
you
journey will
say that,
last.
I envision like, the mirror in the fun house that like, or maybe I don't know how you make it so it looks like there's a mirror and a mirror and a mirror and a mirror, and it just goes on for infinity. That's what I saw when you were talking. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, a
And it's
continuous
like,
metamorphosis.
yeah. And I feel like I've gone through so many transformations by choice because, right, we're in that pivotal moment of whatever is happening in our life. And then we're like, okay, I'm going to jump into this meat suit version of myself. Like, that's what I do because I don't think, obviously, we're all supernatural. We all are. We're supernatural spiritual beings.
I heard somebody say that, think about, you went on a journey so far, far away that you had to take multiple bodies to get there. Like, yeah,
Literally. Yeah.
because the baying was just, from what I understand, is the baying is just this expansion of infinite experience, where we have this choice to weave consciousness through the experiences, but all the possibilities exist. That's why time is just a space. Time is, I'm right here right now. Now I'm not there no more. That time and
Yeah.
space is just right over there, and it still exists. That's why the past and the future and all the infinite, that's what infinite means. That means all of this stuff already exists, and we're just
Yeah.
consciously weaving through it. um so yeah, I hit a brain fart again.
Well, I'm
um
loving our conversation. I feel like, we could talk for hours. So,
that's for sure. Like I
before I
said, I do
close,
with this too.
yeah, like before I close, like, so I know you have higher frequencies. Where can people find your podcast? And then,
It's
like,
on
also,
all the
like,
regular
I want to be
platforms.
on your podcast. So I want to come on
Yeah, for
your
sure.
podcast. Like,
Yeah, definitely, we could definitely set that up. So higherfrequencies.life is the website, and all the episodes are available there, in audio, and they're also on YouTube. There's videos on YouTube. You can find them all on there. But just your everyday platforms, Apple, Pandora, Spotify, higher frequencies is on there. There's kind of other higher frequencies things. You'll see it as a colorful brain is like the logo,
I love
with some
that.
frequencies on
Oh, colorful
it.
brain. That's so good.
uh so yeah, higherfrequencies.life, or find it on YouTube or Facebook. I think all my tags now are like higher frequencies 33. Like, if you want to find like the Facebook or the Instagram, or I think you can even do at higher frequencies 33 in the search box on YouTube, and it'll take you to the channel also.
I love that. I saw 333 today, and I just saw 33 on my way home, like to record this with you. And three threes have been the Christ consciousness energy, the repetitive threes. And I had a significant event happen to me this year, March 3rd, 3-3, which I'm not inclined to share yet on a podcast. Maybe I'll get there, but it's been such an amazing conversation with you, Nicholas. It's been awesome, like meeting you virtually here in this space. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to be a guest on higher frequencies and continue our conversation.
For
Is there
sure, we'll
anything else
set that
that you
up.
want to share?
No, I don't think so. I guess spirit flowed where it needed to, as always. And yeah, we'll definitely get up and do a podcast on higher frequencies, and kind of pick up and talk about whatever.
All right, sounds good. And here's my dog, of course.
Nice,
Just like
nice.
there, that's part of the experience. This is Charles, but with that, thank you all so much for tuning in to Tattva Tuesday. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your week, and check out Nicholas with higher frequencies.
Peace and love. Namaste.